What's up and what's good? I'm Brolo, and I just want to give just a few minutes here just to recap this first round of the NFL draft that we all just witnessed. Kind of crazy, kind of cool. Really glad that it was here finally. I mean, it was a lot of fun. So, without further ado, let's just dive in. Number one, Bears, no surprise, they go Caleb Williams. I'm not really going to bother reading any of this, so I'll just open this for you so you can see it. Obviously, you guys have access to this website, nfl.com/draft/tracker. So, Caleb Williams, really chalk from the get-go. Number one overall prospect, number one overall pick. He's great on the field. There's a couple question marks off the field. They get help a little bit later that we'll see that you all already know of. So, I think it's a good pick all around. Going over to number two with the Commanders, they go Jayden Daniels. I don't necessarily like this pick. I really think that he does have bust written all over him. I personally would have preferred Drake May in this situation, but what do I know? I'm just some guy behind a computer screen. Jayden Daniels did have a very good year out of LSU, but it was only 1 year that he really played extremely well. Everything else was just meh, really. But he ended up playing alongside two other first round caliber wide receivers we'll see a little bit later. He has a lot of rushing upside. He kind of gives me RG3 vibes, which is good, but hopefully he can stay healthy and kind of, have a prolonged career in the NFL. Going over to pick three, New England Patriots stick and pick rather than trading down, which is really popular for them to do. A lot of mocks were having, including me. But they go Drake May, pick three overall. I like this pick. I think he should have gone two, just based off talent alone. I'm a little bit biased, but that's just my thought there. Drake May gives me a ton of Josh Allen vibes. He's big, he's tall, he is fast, he has a great arm, and he's a little bit wild, just like Josh Allen was. Now, the issue with the Patriots is they really don't have much of anything around Drake May. So I think the best bet for him is to be a backup, at least to start the year, maybe half the year, maybe the whole year. You have Jacoby on a 1 year deal, believe for $8 million. Utilize that. Let him play out there. Let Drake May learn and develop, and who knows, maybe he can be the next Jordan Love. Going over to pick four, Arizona Cardinals. Again, super chalk here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Really kind of chalk. Arizona goes Marvin Harrison Jr. This was another popular trade destination, but at the end of the day, the Cardinals need to start getting a lot of talent on their roster in order to play good competitive football. This is definitely a start of building a new culture, obviously building a new wide receiver core. I think this is one of the best picks and sharp picks in this draft. Now, pick five here, the Los Angeles Chargers. Again, another big trade destination for a lot of mocks, me included. However, if the Chargers were to stick and pick, this was the correct pick, in my opinion. Joe Alt is a specimen. He is 6'8". He's over 300 pounds. He's exactly what Jim Harbaugh is going to want. There was a lot of smoke leading into this draft about the Chargers reaching for J.C. Latham here. Obviously, you see his name at number 7. But I just think Joe Alt is that better of a prospect. Welcome to the team. They're going to start building through the trenches, running the football. They will address receiver later. It's going to be probably the biggest need at this point for this team. They're going to build a new culture. This year's probably not going to be super great, so sorry if you're a Chargers fan, but it should be looking up in 2025 onward. Now, at pick 6 here, the New York Giants, they also stayed and picked, and they went Malik Nabers. I did think wide receiver was going to be the pick for them, but I will be honest, I thought it was going to be Rome Odunze here. Only reason, I do think Rome is a better X receiver than Malik, but I think Malik is more dynamic with the football in his hands. Daniel Jones isn't really going to have all day for a number one receiver to run a 3 to 5 second route. Malik is very quick in and out of cuts. He can make a lot happen with the ball in his hands as well. I think ultimately this is a very smart pick for the Giants. They get a big talent in receiver in the big market. I think they're going to be able to be electric this year. Now going over to pick 7, Tennessee Titans. In a lot of my mocks, I had teams trading up to number 5, drafting a quarterback, and then the Titans being able to get Joe Alt. However, obviously, they have J.C. Latham here. I think this is a smart pick. They have put a ton of resources into offense for this year, and they continue in the first round. J.C. Latham, I think, is going to be a very good blindside blocker for Will Levis. He's going to be able to actually stay in the pocket, go through reads now as well, and he's a pretty big mauler as well. They do have 2 decent running backs, so I think this Titans team is going to be a little bit better than what people are thinking. Now, going over to pick 8, this is definitely the biggest shock of the draft. I honestly think it's a nice pick. I am a Washington fan, so I realize that I say that with a lot of bias. But there's so many question marks with Kirk Cousins. Yes, it does not really make sense for them to go quarterback if they give Kirk Cousins a 4-year deal making 9 figures. So it's a very big head scratcher here. However, this is a quarterback. This is the first round. He gets a 5th-year option here. Atlanta can definitely go the Jordan Love route, possibly for 2+ years. There technically isn't out after the 2nd year of the Kirk Cousins deal. This Atlanta Falcons team is also most likely going to be facing sanctions. They might be able to lose their first-round pick in 2025. So because of that, this I think is actually a pretty decent move. Yes, you have to have a big brain mentality to get there, but I really don't hate it. I was a huge Michael Penix believer. I really thought he should have been picked over J.J. McCarthy. Obviously, he did in this draft. Who knows? I mean, time will tell. This is going to be a multi-year process before we can truly grade this pick. People are going to hate it. They're going to give him an F right now. But just trust me, come back to this in 2-3 years, you guys will be wrong. Going over to pick 9, Chicago Bears, they get Rome Odunze. I really like this pick. I personally thought that the Bears should have traded down, accumulated more picks, because they only have 2 more for the rest of this draft. Yes, a lot can still happen. They do have people on their team that they could trade. They do have picks for next year and future years that they could trade. But I do like the fit of Rome Odunze. Yes, you do have Keenan Allen. Yes, you do have DJ Moore. I really wouldn't be too worried about Keenan Allen cutting into Rome's production or vice versa. I think Keenan is going to exclusively live in the slot. Maybe he starts in 11 personnel for the first little bit. But I do think Rome is going to come onto the scene pretty quickly here. There are reports that Caleb Williams and Rome really gelled throughout this whole draft process. Kind of gives a lot of people vibes of C.J. Stroud and Tank Dell. Obviously, Tank Dell's a 3rd-round pick. Rome is a 1st-round pick. But if it worked in the Texans, maybe it'll work in Chicago. Now, pick 10, Minnesota Vikings. They traded up 1 spot. This was the first trade of the draft, and they drafted J.J. McCarthy. A lot of people had the Vikings trading up for J.J. McCarthy. While yes, technically this did come true and happen, it was only a 1-pick swap. A lot of people had him going up to 5 with the Chargers, me included. Some people had him going up to number 6 or number 8 as well. J.J. fell a little bit, but at the end of the day, he did not really throw the ball a whole lot, so there's not a ton of tape on him. Apparently, he tested really well. He interviewed really well. I think he will be a really good quarterback. And in this system, it's going to be very easy for a quarterback to succeed. So I think because of that, J.J. McCarthy is going to have a pretty decent career in front of him. He has one of the best receivers in the NFL. So hopefully they're able to extend Justin Jefferson here. He's happy with this pick. And then this team can look on to brighter futures here. Now going over to pick 11 with the New York Jets. They traded down 1 spot and added an additional mid-round picks here, which was actually a really nice move. A lot of people really wanted to have Brock Bowers go to the Jets at number 11. I think taking offensive line is a smarter move here. Yes, they did bring in some veteran presence. I believe 3 offensive line were brought in for this year, but they are a little bit older. They need to start looking for the future, and Olu Fashanu is definitely going to be a guy that I think can be one of the best pass blockers in this draft. He's raw a little bit, yes. He's very big. He's very strong. He can also learn under a future Hall of Fame left tackle, in my opinion. I think this was a really good move. Now going over to number 12, Denver Broncos. They went Bo Nix, possibly a little bit controversial. Definitely not as controversial as Michael Penix, though. A lot of people hated that one. But anyway, this is the Broncos we're talking about now. With Bo Nix, he has been linked to Sean Payton pretty much this entire offseason and pretty much leading up into this draft as well. A lot of people had Denver either trading up. The more popular pick was to trade down. However, they stuck, they picked, they have their guy. They technically do have 4 quarterbacks on roster here. Obviously, I think one's going to be cut or moved to the practice squad at least, but I think they will end up liking Bo Nix. It might take a little bit of time, but who knows? Maybe he can start from day one. Maybe he can prove everyone wrong and actually be a really good quarterback. Hopefully they can add another wide receiver so he can actually have someone to throw to, but I think this is going to be a good Sean Payton pick here. Now going over to pick 13, I personally think this was probably my least favorite pick in this draft. Brock Bowers goes 13 to the Raiders. The reason why I don't like this is they invested in a day 2 pick with Michael Mayer last year, who a ton of people had as the tight end 1 prospect in his draft class. So because of that, I kind of scratch my head a little bit. Like, yes, they were linked to taking a quarterback, but 6 went in the first 12 picks, That is a record in the NFL. I don't think we're going to see that again for quite some time. I think because of that, the Raiders just went best player available. While, yes, Brock Bowers is very good, he can play multiple positions. He can play in the slot, he can play H-back, which I think will probably be his 1B position, and probably see a 70-30 split, 70% of the snaps at tight end, 30% at H-back. Their offense is going to be pretty interesting. I guess they're going to be running with Gardner Minshew for this whole season. Don't really know what's going to happen with Davante Adams. Who knows? Maybe he gets dealt for possibly a different quarterback. At this point, I doubt it. But anyway, back to Brock Bowers. He is an elite tight end prospect, don't get me wrong. I think he's going to have a great future in this league. I'm just not sure for the first couple years. I think it might be a little rocky, a little bumpy start. But who knows? Maybe I could be wrong here. Now, moving over to pick number 14, the New Orleans Saints. They go to Taliese Fuaga, Oregon State offensive tackle. They've been linked to tackle pretty much this whole time. I personally thought they were going to actually mix it up and go receiver, but leading into the day before the draft, their right tackle, Ryan Ramczyk, retired. So because of that, the Saints were all but guaranteed to be going offensive line here. Taliese Fuaga, I think, is one of the smarter players in this draft. He's super powerful. I was able to watch a decent amount of Pac-12 football this year being a Washington fan. I really hated when Washington went up against this team. Braylon Trice, their best edge rusher in Washington, had a lot of trouble here. So I think because of that, Taliese Fuaga is a good pick. Who knows? Maybe the Saints are actually making some right moves for once. Now, pick 15, Laiatu Latu, edge rusher from the Indianapolis Colts. Pick 15 for the first defensive position is wild. It was pretty much a record-setting draft for having 6 quarterbacks go in the first round, let alone the top 12 there. That was insane. 22, I believe, offensive players were drafted total, which is, again, NFL record. Maybe it was even 23. I'm not a big numbers guy, so I guess you guys can count. Let me know in the comments. Anyway, Laiatu Latu, I think, is the best defensive player in this draft. Obviously, he was taken first defensive player, so there is some merit to that. This filled a big need for Indianapolis. There's a lot of people that were saying they could go receiver. Some people, me included, thought they could go Brock Bowers. Obviously, he was gone. Laiatu Latu is the pick. Great edge rusher. He can play inside as well in a pinch. He is big, he is strong, but he is also quick and very disruptive too. I'm a little disappointed the Colts didn't go corner, but at the end of the day, edge rusher is a more dominant position than corner. You can have mediocre secondary if you have an elite edge rusher, but you cannot have an elite secondary if you have mediocre edge rushers, so I understand the philosophy. Going over to pick 16, This is my team, the Seattle Seahawks. I am grateful that we were able to get Brian Murphy II here. I didn't think that was going to be possible. I thought he was going to be gone, and I'm really ecstatic about it. Our defensive line is finally going to be coming together here. Yes, we did re-sign Leonard Williams on a 2-year deal. We don't have a second-round pick because we did trade that over to the Giants. I really love this pick. I think Byron is going to be a great fit. He might start off just a little slow learning the league, but pretty much every single player in here could start off a little slow while they learn the different dynamics of the NFL. It is very different than in college, but I do think this is a great pick here. He's a very good run stopper, and he can rush the passer, playing 3 technique here. He can play outside if needed, but the Seahawks hit on edge in the past couple drafts, so it's not really needed there. They're building a new team, a new culture, and I'm excited for it. Now, pick 17 with the Minnesota Vikings, they did have pick 23. They moved up to 17, and they selected Dallas Turner, edge rusher out of Alabama. Interesting to see, we had offense go for the first 14 picks, then 3 defensive players in a row. Dallas Turner and Laiatu Latu, for a lot of people, were 1A, 1B for edge rusher. Pretty much everything that I mentioned about Laiatu Latu does hold true for Dallas Turner to an extent. However, Dallas Turner is a little bit lengthier, so it gives him that unique ability to kind of get a lot more reach tackles, if that makes sense. He can run down a lot more people than Laiatu Latu can. They are both very dominant, don't get me wrong, but Dallas Turner can just have that little bit more reach factor there. The Vikings did lose Danielle Hunter, so it makes sense for them to fill this position of need. They traded up for a few spots. I mean, I respect it. I like it. Not a huge Vikings fan myself, but I think this team actually is going to be pretty good. Going over to pick 18 here with the Cincinnati Bengals, they go Amarius Mims, offensive tackle out of Georgia. I like this pick. I did think they were going to go Troy Fautianu instead. However, Amarius Mims is still dominant in his own right. Most of the mocks I had the Bengals selecting offensive line for this reason. They paid Joe Burrow a ton of money. He has been oft injured so often, so it just makes sense to get more protection there. Yes, they brought in a couple offensive linemen. They did lose 1 or 2 as well, so it's just good to kind of bolster that position group that is of need. I think this is a pretty smart move. Now, pick 19, the Los Angeles Rams. They said it on TV. They said it pretty much anywhere this draft was. The Rams have not picked in the first round since 2016 when they drafted Jared Goff. Now, they did lose Aaron Donald, which was a defensive tackle. There is a defensive tackle still on the board. I thought they were going to go in that position if they were going to go D-line, but I do also like the fit of Jared Verse here. I know what I just said, but I did actually have a couple mocks with Jared Verse going as their edge rusher. I think I had them trading down a little bit, though, selecting him. Regardless, they get their guy here. I think this is a smart move. The Rams don't really have too much of a defense. I think it starts up front, and it starts with Jared Verse. He has potential to be amazing here. I think he does have to take a little bit of time to develop, but he is, in my eyes at least, a couple tiers above Chop Robinson, who goes a couple picks later, so I do like the pick. Now, going over to 20, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Troy Fautianu. I think this is a smart move. Troy can play pretty much any position, center in a pinch, from my understanding, but he's a good tackle. He's probably going to be pushed into guard, though. A lot of people don't like shorter arms on the outside, so I think that's why people are projecting him to go to guard. I think this is just a good fit here. I did think that the Steelers were going to go defensive back, kind of bolster up that side of the ball on defense. They didn't. They proved me wrong. That happened a lot tonight. I'm fine with it, though. It was really fun and exciting to see all these guys' dreams come true. I think this is a good fit. I'm a little salty as a Washington fan. I really don't like the Steelers, so just bear with me there. Now, pick 21, this was very surprising. Chop Robinson, Miami Dolphins. They do have 2 edge rushers, but they also were hurt as well. They traded for Bradley Chubb, and he is on roster for a couple more years. They drafted Jalen Phillips a couple years ago. Both players are extremely good. Both players play on the edge, but both players have also been injured a little bit. So I do understand this. Chop Robinson is very dynamic. He is super athletic. He's named Chop. I mean, his nickname is Chop because, he's just a pork chop, really. That's what people call him. But he has really choppy feet as well. I believe Daniel Jeremiah actually was talking about that in this draft pick here. I think he's super explosive. He is going to take a little time to develop, but I do like the pick. Miami plays against the Bills twice a year. They play against the Jets twice a year and the Patriots twice a year. I did think they were going to go defensive tackle. Regardless, they keep it on the defensive line. Chop's a decent pick, I think. So we'll see how that goes. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles here, this kind of surprised me a little bit. They go Quinyon Mitchell, first defensive back in this class to be taken, all the way down at pick 22. This guy, I think, is definitely a top 10 talent. From what they were saying on his draft day profile, he's a very humble guy. I didn't even know that. Going into Toledo, yes, he was amazing. I didn't realize that he struggled with grades in high school going into college. He's very fortunate from what his story sounds like, but he's also has a really good head on his shoulders there. I don't think he's going to take anything for granted. I think he's going to come in and work day in, day out, kind of help that culture in Philadelphia, especially at least on the defensive side of the ball. He is decently sized. He's amazing when it comes to athleticism. He's super fast. He shut down pretty much every receiver at the Senior Bowl. I think this is a really good pick for the Eagles, and they get a lot better here. Now, pick 23, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Remember, they traded down. The Vikings traded up. And Jacksonville Jaguars got Brian Thomas Jr. I think this is one of the smarter picks in this draft. I really thought Brian Thomas Jr. was going to go a lot earlier, but it just goes to show the depth of this wide receiver class. I think because of that, people are like, oh, I could just get different receivers later and be fine. That might hold true, but there's no different receiver like Brian Thomas Jr. He's 6'3", ran a 4.3. He's very good. The Jacksonville Jaguars did have a hole at wide receiver. They let Calvin Ridley walk. I think Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be a tremendous fit for Trevor Lawrence. He's going to finally have a 1A, 1B receiver. Hopefully they stay on the field together. Hopefully there's no injuries for them. I think this team can turn it around and go pretty deep in the playoffs. Now, pick 24, hometown Detroit Lions, who was hosting this draft. They traded up. I wasn't really expecting a trade up here. I did think the Lions were going to either go edge rusher or they were going to go defensive back. Obviously, they go DB here. They get Terrion Arnold. He seems like an amazing culture fit for the Lions. He seems like a Dan Campbell kind of guy. Apparently, he loves football, loves talking about football. I think he's going to play a lot into this Detroit Lions fandom that they've really accumulated over the past couple years or so. They whiffed on a corner a few years ago in Jeff Okudah. They did have, I believe, Cam Sutton, who had a lot of off-field issues this offseason, so they can't really count on him. So what better way than just to replace someone with a rookie coming in, again with a fifth-year option here. But Terrion Arnold is a very good pick. Apparently he's a really good leader. He gets teamed up with Brian Branch from their time at Alabama together. I think this will be a good fit for him. Now, pick 25, this was a little bit of a head-scratcher with the Green Bay Packers. Yes, they were projected to go offensive line. I think there's a few other offensive linemen that they should have taken over this. However, again, what do I know? I'm just someone behind a computer screen here. Jordan Morgan is the pick. I really don't know too much of this prospect. From what I was seeing, what people were saying on TV, he's a decent athlete. He's not super powerful, but he can run. He seems to be like a good zone blocker, in my opinion, from just seeing everything that I saw, what people were saying about him too. I think he's going to be a decent fit. The Packers do have offensive line needs, so this kind of helps fill that hole. Who knows? I mean, the Packers hit on a lot of their draft picks, so I could be terribly wrong here. This guy could be like a top 5 pick. I guess time will tell. Now the Bucks pick Graham Barton, interior lineman. He can play guard. He can play center. I think this is a really smart pick here. I thought the Bucks were they didn't go edge rusher or interior line. I personally think Jackson Powers Johnson, JPJ, was going to be a better pick than Graham Barton. But again, I could be wrong because what do I know? Graham Barton is very big. He's very athletic. He is very strong, and he does have shorter arms. So again, I think that's why they project him to be an interior offensive lineman who can play center. The Bucks do have a position of need at center, so it just makes sense for them. Now, moving over to pick 27, the Arizona Cardinals, they go edge rusher. I like this pick. Darius Robinson is not really going to be a fast edge rusher, but he's going to be a mauler. He does give me Jadeveon Clowney vibes. I know I say that, and a lot of people are really going to hate on Jadeveon Clowney. I don't think he's a bad player. I think he's actually very good. He plays the edge position, but he does not play the edge position to get sacks. Yes, he disrupts passes, but he's more of a run stopper. Yes, he can fill passing lanes. I mean, he's tall, he is fast, he is quick, but he's not going to be a guy that's going to get 15 sacks in a season. I know that's a lot. Not many people can do that. Maybe Darius can get 7 to 10 or so, but regardless, he is going to be more of a power rusher. I really like this pick. I think Arizona is going to start building through the trenches from this point forward. They can probably use some DBs as well, but I think this is a good pick for the Cardinals. Now, pick 28 is very interesting here at the Kansas City Chiefs. Buffalo trades down to pick 32, which then trades out again. I really like the fit for this team. It makes me a little annoyed just because I did invest in Marquise Hollywood Brown a decent amount in fantasy football this upcoming year in Dynasty. But that's just me being selfish here. I think Xavier Worthy is going to be a tremendous fit for the Kansas City Chiefs. I do think he is going to be a little bit more of a decoy, at least to start off in his career. I don't think he's going to be a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 for fantasy. Yes, he will have spike weeks and probably have like maybe 2 or 3 weeks totals, like wide receiver 5 overall or higher or something like that. I just don't think he's going to be super reliable to start. I could be wrong, though. Rashee Rice is probably going to be suspended. We don't know how long. It could be 1 game. It could be 2. It could be 6. I don't think it's going to be a whole season's worth of games, but there is going to be some sort of suspension there. So it kind of makes sense. What's very interesting, though, is it seems all these receivers on Kansas City's team are going to be a lot smaller and twitchy guys. Obviously, they have Xavier Worthy for 5 years. They have Marquise Hollywood Brown for just a 1-year sort of prove-it deal. He has been a little bit oft-injured, so that one makes sense. Rashee Rice was a rookie last year, so he's got 3 more years on his deal. I believe he's about 6 foot or so it's not like he's a super big presence there. They do have Kadarius Toney. I believe they still are going to have Mecole Hardman as well. So it's just an interesting dynamic of a lot shorter, twitchy receivers. I mean, it could work, though. Andy Reid has amazing offenses year after year. So why not then to expect that? Now, with the Cowboys at pick 29, they traded down with Detroit. I think this is a good pick. The Cowboys were linked to go offensive line pretty much this whole draft cycle, and obviously they do here in Tyler Guyton. I don't know why, but Tyler Guyton had a lot of smoke on him saying he was going to fall down draft boards and fall out of the first round completely. I never bought that. I didn't watch Oklahoma football all that much, but during some of my scouting of him, he's very strong. He is very physical. I think this is going to be a good fit for Dallas. There might be a little bit of development that needs to happen here. But, I mean, these guys are rookies at the end of the day. This is technically going to be a different game for them than what they were playing in college. I don't expect everyone to come in right away and just kill it instantly. Tyler Guyton might take a little bit, but I think he's going to be a really good pick for Dallas. Now, this brings us to pick 30 with the Baltimore Ravens. I thought they were going to go edge rusher or offensive line. They obviously don't do what I think. They went defensive back. I don't mind this pick. I kind of wanted to see Nate Wiggins go to Arizona, in all honesty. Nate Wiggins is a very good player in the defensive side of the ball when the ball's in the air. Obviously, he plays corner, so he's supposed to be guarding receivers, and receivers catch the ball, so it makes sense that his skill sets are so good with the ball in the air. However, he is a liability when it comes to the run. It doesn't look like he's a willing tackler, or he doesn't really know how to, which, I mean, that part of the game could be taught, but it really comes down to a willingness there. I don't know if that's something if he has or not, but at the end of the day, this guy's 6'2". He's a little bit skinnier, so he might get pushed around a little bit. But he ran a 4.28. You can't teach speed, you can't teach height, you can't teach length. So I think the Baltimore Ravens did get a guy here that's good, but I think he's going to have to bulk up at least a little bit in order to survive in the NFL. Now, pick 31, San Francisco 49ers. Again, this was a little bit of a shock here with Ricky Pearsall out of Florida. A lot of people were saying he was going to be a late day 2, early day 3 kind of pick here. I like the fit. It's very interesting, though, and because the 49ers go receiver, it makes me think that Brandon Ayuk is going to be out the door for the 49ers, which, as an Ayuk owner in Dynasty Fantasy Football, it's a little sad because I don't think he's going to be going into a position where he can really be wide receiver 1 on a good offense. He'll be wide receiver 1 on a decent offense. Regardless, though, we're talking about Ricky Pearsall. I think the main reason why the 49ers picked Ricky, he's very good with the ball in his hands, but the more important trait for their wide receivers that they want is he blocks. Now, the 49ers love to run the football. They love to run misdirection. The Shanahan offense is very complex and very hard to stop. I think if Ricky can pick up on it really quickly, he's going to be someone that's going to thrive in this system here. It might take a little bit of time. I think they are going to lean a little bit more heavily on Debo and George Kittle to start the year, possibly run McCaffrey into the ground. Hopefully that doesn't happen because I think McCaffrey has a chance to pretty much be one of the best running backs that we've ever seen, especially in this 49er system. Regardless, though, Ricky Pearsall is an amazing talent. A lot of people did not expect him to be a first-round pick, me included, but I am happy for the guy. Now, pick 32, Carolina Panthers. This one was a little interesting. They picked Xavier Legette. Allegedly, the Carolina Panthers front office, Dan Morgan, told Legette that he was going to be picked with the 33rd pick. I think the Panthers lived in fear a little bit of the Bills wanting to draft receiver because obviously they traded Stephon Diggs away for not really much, a second-round pick, but they also had to give up like a 5th or 6th or something for it too. I think the Bills really wanted out of Stephon Diggs. He wasn't a good locker room fit, so they moved on. I thought the Bills were going to get a receiver here, and maybe the Panthers thought they were going to get their guy. So they jumped the Bills the 1 pick and draft their wide receiver 1 in Xavier Legette. I like this pick. I think it'll be a pretty decent pick. It might take a little bit for Xavier to learn this system. The one thing I scratch my head on, though, it seems like the Panthers have 3 receivers that all very do similar things. Xavier Legette, yes, he can be a wide receiver 1. I still think that Jonathan Mingo could pan out in this league. They use Jonathan more as a slot guy. I don't think that's his game. Pretty much in college, he would play outside the numbers and stay there. I think he needs to do that. Xavier can pretty much do that same thing too. Xavier's a little bit older though, and the only issue I have with Xavier Legette, he only had 1 good season, and that was his senior year. A lot of people think that's going to be a red flag. He didn't have a young breakout age. I don't really buy into that all that much. I mean, Michael Pittman didn't have a good breakout age, and he's one of the better receivers, and he recently got paid. So I kind of throw that argument out the window. But they also did bring in Deontay Johnson. Deontay, yes, he's played on the outside in the past, and I think can be very successful there. But I think with this wide receiver core, Deontay is going to be pushed inside. So there you have it, though. That is my breakdown of the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft. again, I had a lot of fun watching the picks I was able to watch here. I think all these teams are going to be pretty successful. I still scratch my head a little bit on the Falcons, but I like the pick. I scratch my head more on the Raiders. I'm not a huge fan of that pick, to be honest with you. But overall, I think every team walked away with their guy or their guy that they wanted in their second position they wanted to draft. I'm excited to see what happens at day 2 and day 3. There's still a lot of good free agents out there as well, especially in the running back market too. We didn't see any running backs here. We didn't see Cooper DeJean here. That one was a little bit surprising. I guarantee you he's going to go within the first 10 picks of day 2 though. Well, there you have it. This is Brolo signing off. Peace.